Our next case example of what could be possible in South Australia, we have Peter Wadewitz, and Peter is the Managing Director of Peat Soil and Garden Supplies and Biobin Technologies. He's going to talk about his anaerobic digester that he has installed on his site in the Fleurieu Peninsula. I believe you also make your own biodiesel. So I'm sure he'll touch on that as well. So Peter's been in the horticultural industry for over 30 years, very much composting and recycling of organic materials, and I'm sure you've seen his products around on the shelf. He's been involved in RenewablesSA, and he was chairperson of Compost Australia as well. He's been part of the Prime Minister's Science, Engineering and Innovation Council Working Group on Australian industry's sustainable competitiveness, and he really has been, I guess, finding a competitive advantage on his organic materials supply, and an anaerobic digester is one of those. So thank you so much, Peter, for coming down and presenting today.
Good morning, everybody. One thing, I'm not like Terry, I actually don't know much about energy, so don't take any advice from me on energy. Catherine, Mary, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'd particularly like to thank Chris Colby. Chris is working with us on this AD plant, and it was Chris that sort of mentioned about coming down and just sort of talking about what we're having a go at doing, and not suggesting this is the perfect case, but I'm hopeful it's going to really work for us. I'm just going to have a little bit of a side issue. I was in China with Erica and the RDA and on the Premier's delegation that went up just recently. I've been one of the worst critics of these programs in the past. I've got to say this is one of the best ones I've been on. The staff really worked hard, and I think there's going to be some fantastic outcomes for South Australia out of it. I think that delegation, that China Southern flying directly into Australia next year will be massive. Be prepared. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. The Chinese are really keen to get involved and be part of what we're doing in South Australia, and the people that I've been dealing with up there for 20 years have been absolutely fantastic. So I think there's some really big opportunities in that. A little side issue, one of the blokes I'm working with up there is building a $40 million AD plant, going to take 600 tonne of food waste a week. He's actually drawing up an agreement out of that workshop that we went up to talk about us actually working with him in terms of adding value to his compost that's going to come out of the digestate out of the AD plant. So you just don't know where these things are going to go, and I think that's probably what we should do, is take off our blinkers a bit and just sort of get out there and have a little bit of a go, because I think there's some bloody massive opportunities out there. So I think that's a real good thing. And I'm going to just jump a little bit, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but it's just typical of what I do in my life. This little AD plant we thought was really going to be exciting for what we're doing on our site, and the guy that we've been involved with in Japan for probably over 18 years has come down and had a look at what we're doing, and he's got so excited about it, this little project, that Chris Colby and I had lunch with him 2 days ago, and he's tentatively nearly given us the final order. On Monday he will actually fax through an order to build one of these AD plants, our AD plant that we're doing up the very, very north of Japan. We haven't got the final figures yet, between $2 and $3 million worth of business, and I actually can't believe we talk shit in our business. For us to actually be in an opportunity to actually export this technology, which, from a business point of view, I know very little about, to look at what we're doing in terms of that project in Japan. So, I think, again, it just shows if you get out there and have a bit of a go at these things, you actually don't know what's around the corner and who's looking for this, and I don't think we realise how much innovation we actually do in South Australia. So let me just talk a little bit about our company. So that was just typical of our business. Van Shanks here in Mount Gambier, Briargrove, fantastic company. We do a lot of business with them. I've known the Van Shanks for 40 odd years. They've been a fantastic company, a competitor. We work together, we compete together, and that's just sort of typical of what we've done in the past. just collect the waste and get paid from the councils and turn it into a bit of compost and put it in a bag and off we go. But then we realised that there's actually a lot of value in this stuff, and when you understand the energy value in all this stuff, so we started to rethink how we're going to get some extra value into our business. We can't just keep competing on price. It just doesn't work. You'll go broke overnight if you just keep going to the lowest common denominator on price. And the big corporations, the Coles and Woolies, will just keep pushing you down and pushing you down. They want the Australian standards in everything. They want the best of everything, but they won't pay for any of it. So we kept thinking, well, we've got to get out of this circle of bloody destruction and get into something else. So we started looking at all the energy. So we've really just sort of changed that whole value chain of how we think of our business and how we think of waste. So again, we really now just get into that. Everything we do is, have we got the best value out of what we're doing? And if it's not putting it in a bag of potting mix or putting it in that, we'll actually try and find another solution for it. So we set out on this road, and what actually set us on it was to bring power into our site was going to cost us probably $1.5 million from the power energy group to bring the power in, and it was going to cost us, with what we want to do in the next couple of 3 years, $200,000 to $300,000 a year to use that power. And I looked at it and said, I'm not bloody paying these crooks to take all my money. So we went out and we suddenly decided that we'd have a bit of a look at an AD plant, and we then realised what energy was in it, and then we started doing the economics of it, and we thought, well, this is a real good way of actually using the product, getting that little bit of energy off the top, still putting it back through our compost, and in fact, in the digestates now, with all the work we're doing with Chris, we actually think that we can actually add more value to the compost by using the digestates and actually adding some stuff in that process. So, we've gone along that. So we're going to spend about $2 million. My wife's not here, is she? I sort of say up of $1 million, darling. And we got a regional development grant. That's been a really interesting exercise. That's taken a lot longer than necessary. Again, solicitors got involved and bureaucrats got involved to the point where we just can't, we've got to drive this faster in South Australia. It's just holding projects up. 2014, we put the application in, and we just got the contract through this week to say that we can actually get hold of the money. And it was just the Crown Law Department just find clauses in there, just no commercial reality. And if we're going to use these grants, which they're fantastic and we really appreciate them, but we wanted this money sort of middle of last year. So I had lunch with my bank manager again yesterday just to keep telling him that it's all going to be good, boss. So now what we do is we put the feed in, the organic, we're sucking out the energy. While I was up in China, we've just gone and investigated 2 Chinese companies that make methane engines, and we've just, tomorrow, we're going to order the engine from China in terms of that, and we're going to order a small one first, as part of this whole trial process to make sure that everything we've done on spreadsheets and everything works. And this is what our AD is going to look like. We're building these great big submarines. So we tendered for the project, but France beat us. So what it is geofabric fibre, and we're just simply going to fill them to about a third of the bottom with dirty, rotten, stinking sludge, and fill it up with air. We'll suck the air off, and the methane off the top, run it through a methane plant. They will actually have a heat generator on which we'll use to keep the material inside warm. So we're in the end of the project, we should have about 20 of these. So we're looking to put about 15,000 tonne through each of these pods, as we call them, Pete's pods. It's pretty original. So at this stage, we're just ready, probably next week, to start filling the pods, just to actually pull off the methane and just see how we're going. The engine will be about 6 weeks away from coming down from China. It was really interesting when I met with a Chinese company. They said, if you've got any big projects in Australia that you want to build AD plants, give us the project. The bigger the better. We'll fund it. We'll put up the money. They're looking for massive big projects like this. So that one that I talked about in China was really interesting. It is a PPP, a true one. The Chinese government's put up the land, and then the investors are building the plant. So, you know, that capital cost and that investment that the Chinese government's actually putting into it is really crucial to make these things get up and run properly. So in the end, this is I'll show you a 3D picture in a minute, but that's what the pods are going to look like on a paddock that we've got on our farm. We're at 760 hectares, so we've got a little bit of land to mess around, and we're really in marginal land just out of Monardo. So that's what we'll be building in terms of there. And in the shed here, we're actually going to put a bagging plant and some granulation plant to make a final granulation product in it. So that's what the site's going to look like. So these will be the pods up here. We're putting a recycling shed up here at the moment. That's taken 8 months just to get the permit to put a shed up. So we'll be sucking the air across into here, and we'll be putting our, we've got a biodiesel plant, I'll show you in a minute, a bagging plant, a granulation plant, and all that in here. And these are the windrows. So we'll be pumping the digestate from this over to the windrows and putting the material in there. So all we've lost is that little bit of carbon, a little bit of hydrogen out of the process. So that's the AD project in simple terms, and of course then we've gone through and really analysed what products are available, you know, what can we get, so that our commercial managers are going out to look for these sorts of waste streams that will actually have a lot of energy source in them, which has sort of changed our thinking again in terms of how we use those. So the next project is we collect about 20 million litres of grease trap fats, and the Adelaide University got a grant. They were going to do a deal with Thomas Foods. That fell through. They came to us and said, look, we hear you collect all these fats. Would you be interested in doing a biodiesel project? So I had to go and Google biodiesel and find out what it was. But anyway, it's really stacked up for us, the economics in terms of what they could do. They found that between 5 and 25% of the fats that we collect is pure, or 5 to 25% of the dirty, rotten liquid fats we produce is pure fats. So in the laboratory, we've worked out a sort of an IP in terms of how we can actually clean that. We've now taken it out of the university, and we're building a plant at the moment, which is started off at 250,000. I think we're up to 1 million now. That's how it goes, Terry, isn't it? But the economics still works. It's still looking fantastic. It will be running on Monday. We've got about 200 litres in the tank at the moment. It will be running on Monday. I've got an investor coming down from Sydney on Monday to actually see the plant running, because he actually runs trucks that collect 40 million litres of grease trap fats in the eastern states and runs 300 trucks. So he's really keen to actually get this as a licence for the eastern states. So, you know, again, it's an area that I didn't know much about, but the fallout of all this and what's coming out of it in terms of business opportunities. The Japanese guy that was in the other day is now talking to us about, can we do this in Japan? Can we set up a plant in Japan? Because there's literally not many people around the world that are doing dirty fats. I'm going to be quick. We've bought a second-hand plant. We've readjusted it. We made that many mistakes along the line. It's just incredible. The stupidity of what we've done, but by God, it's been fantastic in terms of learning how to do it properly, and we've probably reduced our costs at another 10 or 15%. So you can sort of see the way we run it now is totally different than the first one that we put up in terms of going to collect a bit of waste, compost it and put it in a bag or sell it in bulk. And then I'll just tell you this. So the Japanese guy that we met, we sold him some biobins 15, 18 years ago. He went back to his trade, which was genetics. He's ended up getting a big grant out of the Tokyo University. He reads the genome of sorghum now. It's not genetically modified. He then just cross-pollinates it. He's got a sorghum that'll grow twice as much sugar as sugarcane. He's got one that'll grow anywhere up to, in Okinawa, 400 tonne of biomass per hectare, irrigated in tropical conditions in Okinawa, but you can see the size of this stuff. He's got one that'll grow a bigger head for this head, and that's the head that the Chinese use to make the wine that they drink up there, which is so that project's looking just exciting. I'm a shareholder of it now. My wife and I have bought shares into the company, and they're just going to float it out of Hong Kong on the international market. And so the chairman of the board was down the other day and spent 2 days with us, and looking at all the recycling and all the waste that we're doing in terms of how we can actually incorporate that. They've actually taken some of our granular product that we make and did a trial in Japan with it and got a 30% better yield using our granular organic waste in terms of growing the sorghum. So you can sort of see the connection of how it's all sort of coming together, which, you know, you don't go out there thinking that this is all going to work, but it's... And then the interesting thing with this stuff is sugarcane, when you crush it, the bagasse that's left, you can't feed it to cattle, whereas with this sorghum, you can actually either make it into a silage or you can actually feed the crushed material that you get the sugar out of to cattle. So there's actually two parts of the equation. So that's really, really interesting in that. And this is a test that's been done in Germany in terms of, I understand that goes something like this. Germany's got 80,000 AD plants, 8,000 AD plants at the moment. By 2050 or something, they're going to have about 80,000 AD plants because they're not going to use any nuclear power. And so this is a project that's been done in terms of the energy source or the gas that's produced out of all these products. But here's our sweet sorghum. So it produces 216 cubic metres of biomass. So we're actually looking at now growing about 10-15% on our farm and actually adding that into our AD plant so that we can actually boost our energy up a little bit. And the variety that is designed is really low lignin, which means that the microbes can actually break it down and produce that lot more energy, which is quite amazing. And again, we put it through to the for fodder. So that's a little bit of what we do and the projects we've been involved in. We're having a pretty big gamble in terms of what we're doing. You know, at the end of the day, if they're coming back from China, absolutely excited about the opportunities and the reception that we had in China. It's all about energy, 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 whether it's in plant matter, food matter, or energy that we turn the powers on. So thank you very much.